Kia ora, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of The Drop Clutch with me, Ricky V. In this series, I'm interviewing as many metal drummers from around New Zealand as I can get to, just to try and get an insight into what makes these guys and girls tick. Now, my guest tonight is arguably one of my favorite drummers in the country. Everything that he does, I certainly pay close attention to, and I know that most of you do as well. He is the drummer for Glassblower. He's the drummer for Into Orbit, and he's also the drummer for Dark Divinity. I have Ian Moir. Ian, how we doing, bro?
Yeah, great. Thanks. Thanks so much for having me.
No worries at all. Thank you so much for being on. So, to get us started, Ian, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us a bit of a history of particularly Into Orbit and Dark Divinity, please.
I'll have to distinguish between the important and the unimportant. But I was a pretty late starter when it came to drumming and music and stuff. I didn't actually get my first kit till I was 18 because I grew up in a pretty non-creative family. But something that I just always knew that I wanted to do. I always knew that I wanted to be on a drum kit, and it just seemed from childhood like the most exciting thing I could possibly do. Some kids want to be an astronaut or drive a massive digger or something like that. I'm just like, I want to go on one of those fucking things. um, so yeah, eventually, just kind of took matters into my own hands and got myself a drum kit and started bashing away. Never really went the lessons kind of route. It was all just I just like figuring stuff out. So I like I like just being left to my own, try shit out, see what happens, see what works, listen to my favorite bands, and play along with them and figure out, so that's that's what a hi-hat's for, or that's where a snare goes or whatever, just by like listening and feeling shit out.
Sure.
And yeah, so had a series of short-lived bands early on in my drumming adventures, and the main one from like my 20s was Belligerence.
Sure.
We were kind of around in the 2005 to 2000 and I don't know 8-ish kind of area, gigging with Backyard Burial and Slave Cadaver and Eighth Year and bands like, even seeing like Sadius Fiend, like back when they
Sure.
were around, and yeah, all the old school shit. So yeah, we got to play with some pretty cool bands back then. But yeah, that was kind of, I guess, my main pre taking it seriously band was Belligerence, and we made some pretty cool shit and melodic death metal kind of vein, which was always the type of heavy music that kind of captured my attention the most. Um, I got a bit frustrated with projects back then, just not going anywhere, and uh, not kind of not breaking out of the tiny local scene at the time, and not really getting real fan bases or anything. So Paul, who had been in Belligerence for a little while, and I kind of knew from a few other local bands at the time. Me and him started jamming some atmospheric sounding stuff because he's really into his kind of prog and post rock kind of thing. So we started messing around with that, and it's very quickly kind of fell into place as just jamming out ideas. It was one of those things where it was like, this could very easily be a real band that kind of just falls into place. So keep in favor of keeping it simple, just like sweet duo. He was on a loop pedal, so we built that project around just me and him jamming atmospheric kind of post rock proggy kind of ideas. And yeah, and that was when I first like really decided to have a serious go at, I guess, like creating a band, like doing the creative vision, like getting the logo and like figuring out what the band voice is, what kind of what you're trying to portray, and getting really on point with that kind of thing. So I kind of yeah, had a real good chance to really explore creative directing and, like, I guess, leading a band in a sense, but with Paul doing most of the melodic side of things, and and I was kind of like creating the environment for that to happen. So it's like kind of uh, yeah, really started exploring that role of being more of a drummer who kind of really gets involved in everything, from the standpoint of like creating a band. Um, and yeah, we Into Orbit was going hard for a few years, and then I got the itch to play fast heavy shit again because that's where I started, So
Oh,
pulled together Dark Divinity was a very similar kind of thing, but it's kind of like me starting that band with a song that I had pre-written and like deciding, okay, yep, this is everything that it was going to be before even getting permanent members. So I was really, I really took that the start of that band as now I'm really going to shape something and dictate something and put it together the way I want to see it. Um, so what would have that been back in 2017? Yeah, so spent a few years getting that band off the ground uh, and then joining Glassblower a few years ago as for the first time in quite a while, just kind of having more of a backseat role where more of an accompaniment kind of role and learning to enjoy that a bit more now too after having most of my past kind of 10 years be responsible for basically everything that's happening in bands and like really have to get involved at all the stress points and pulling things
oh,
off and making things happen. So like the cool thing about Glassblower is I get to sit back and play drums a bit more again and challenge myself on that front.
fantastic.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a very rambly way to try and
Sure.
tell you what I've been up to for my entire life.
Nice. So you mentioned that you got your first kit at 18 because it was just something that you knew that you wanted to do. Um,
Yeah.
why? What was it that gave you the impetus or the motivation and the desire to be a musician, be a drummer?
I don't know. It always just spoke to me like it definitely because I grew up in the least creative, least musical family you could imagine, and I did not grow up around musicians. I didn't know any musicians at school. I didn't have anyone who had any idea about music or any involvement in playing music. So but still every just shit on the radio, I would hear something that was slightly heavier than the Christian kind of gospel music that my parents would play in my household, and I'd be like, that's got a beat, that's cool. And then I'm seeing bands on TV, like stuff that my parents are not interested in and would probably have liked me not to be listening to or being interested in. But I was coming up when grunge and shit was coming up, and my older brother was into Smashing Pumpkins and a few kind of heavier bands, so he heavy, for that standard.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
so yeah, I mean, definitely hearing Smashing Pumpkins for the first time was one of my brother only had a few CDs. He was more of a computer game kind of guy, but he had a few CDs, and one of them was Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, and there's some actually quite heavy shit on there. And Jimmy Chamberlain is an absolute beast on drums, so
Fuck yeah.
I guess that also contributed to hearing these sounds that I was really interested in. But yeah, no, it always just jumped out at me, despite having nothing in my environment to like really open my eyes to anything other than you know looking outside of the home. Um, yeah, I was just always wanted to jump on a drum kit, but for most of my childhood, I was like, but I don't, I wouldn't know what to do. They're real intimidated by it at the same time, and because there was no one around me encouraging me or trying to put a drum kit in front of me or anything. It took getting over that imposter syndrome or the initial like I have to be loud as fuck while I'm really, really bad and practicing, and like everyone's gonna have to hear this while I like go from sounding just awful to slowly sounding not quite so awful. That's quite a thing if you're not like a super confident kid.
Oh
So
yes.
yeah, that hence it taking till late teens to actually like okay, I a bit more my own person now and fuck the neighbors.
Yeah, yeah, fuck him. Uh, cool. So, Leaning into that a little bit further, can you tell us, please, Ian, who some of your favorite drummers are and whose style do you think has influenced your playing the most?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I did bring up that childhood influence, Jimmy Chamberlain from Smashing Pumpkins. I just not that I like idolize them or anything, but I think just because being exposed to his playing so early on, I think that definitely is where a lot of the spark kind of came from at that time. But as I got more defined about what type of music I was into and what type of metal I was into, the top few drummers that I always looked to was Gene Hoglan
Oh,
from
yeah.
Thomas Huck from Meshuggah, Danny Carey from Tool, definitely. Um, and I was talking to someone today actually, and I always go on about this weird death metal band from the 80s called Macabre, who only release music that is about serial killers, and they did this one album called Dharma, and every song was about Jeffrey Dahmer. From It's like a 26 song album or something, and from
Holy
start to
fuck.
finish, it's about Jeffrey Dahmer in chronological order with lots of factual stuff you'd find on Wikipedia. Basically, it's like very thorough. But I was showing someone that today, and like, yeah, this is actually one of my top drummers, and I find him hugely influential, like someone I worship. That no one really knows who it. Well, there's a few Macabre fans around, but they're pretty obscure when it comes down to it. But yeah, his name is Dennis the Menace. I don't know what his real name is, but they call him Dennis the Menace in Macabre. But yeah, he'd probably be in his 50s now. They've been around since the 80s, still going hard, but absolute crazy shit. Like, he's kind of like a tech drummer that has just tons of groove and grew up, it came up in the 80s where it was completely organic. You didn't have any of this triggered stuff. You weren't trying to quantize anything. It's just there is all the imperfections, but just super intricate, super hard hitting, just yeah, crazy fast upbeat, real punk influence, but with that just absolute grind of being able to just fucking blast beat and double kick is at phenomenal speeds. But he always kind of sounds like he's on the edge of falling off, and that's what I love. I love a drummer that's just playing. You can hear they're playing right at the edge of the capacity that they're able to play as fast as they can, and you can just almost hear it coming apart, like almost a little bit, but it doesn't. Like, that's what I like to hear. That's exciting. That's way more exciting to me than hearing something that's been fucking quantized and everything is on grid and perfect. And yeah, I want to hear it cracking it just a little bit.
Well, fair enough. Which leads me on to actually my next question. If you could narrow it down to one or two, what has been your favorite drum performance that you've seen live? Now, I know that you've seen a plethora of really great drummers, so I know it's going to be a little difficult. But yeah, what's your top favorite drum performance that you've seen live, please, Ian?
See, that this is definitely a question where as soon as this is finished, I'll be like, no, I can think of like five other ones I could have said instead this. So I'm just going to say a recent one. Um, I don't know why it's jumping out in my mind, but that Cradle of Filth show from in Auckland, I think it's 2019. I can't even remember who the fuck the drummer was. I can't even remember who plays in Cradle of Filth anymore. That's terrible. Who plays in Cradle of Filth?
Danny Filth. That's the extent of my knowledge, bro.
Yeah, I think Danny Filth was playing drums that night. It was just absolutely phenomenal. Um, I don't know. I saw. Oh, see, this is the fucking problem. I'm so bad at remembering the names of current drummers and bands where they've had quite a few. I saw the Black Dahlia Murder not long ago at Meow. Is that Alan Cassidy?
Yeah, bro. But
All right, all
so
right.
dope.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that was probably the best performance I've seen recently.
He's so
Yeah,
tight.
this is
Everything's on
definitely a
point.
question. This is definitely a question I'm gonna think of like a way better answer for after this interview.
Sure. But Alan Cassidy's a damn good answer. He is incredibly tight and crisp in everything that he does. So, that's a you know, valuable answer for sure. For sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, he's an incredible drummer.
oh yeah. So moving on from there, um, this is a little bit more difficult, but for people to answer, which is why I keep asking it. How would you describe your style, please, Ian?
I don't know. I mean, I intentionally try and I'm plan. I've got three different projects at the moment where I could describe the styles as all completely different. But I guess
Sure.
my natural my natural inclination is just very ADHD. That spazzy, choppy, just changing, fast paced, like falling off the edge a little bit, imperfect human. Like it's you know a little bit loose, but just I don't know, spastic as possible. Then I'm playing in bands that require restraint and reining those types of things in. But if you leave me to my own devices, and if I'm left to like play what I feel like playing usually and what excites me to play and to record and hear myself back and put into songs, it's stuff where it's just extremely busy, unpredictable, stuff where it's kind of defies timing, defies expectation, where fills kind of like in just before a bar and then you change beat, and like just where it just feels like it's just fucking a bit like unpredictable and fucking stupidly like spastic and yeah, yeah, just like a tornado, like yeah.
Sure.
That's what I'd like to play like anyway. But in Dark Divinity, I'm like having to do bars of just like But the cool thing about Glass Blower is I'm expected to like change shit up as often as possible and do surprising things that sound wrong for a second, and then like, oh, okay, all right. I just had to flip my mind over and realize the one has now moved to there, and like, yeah, and then I want to then I want to the next bit. Yeah, defying expectations and creating surprising moments. And just,
Sure.
yeah,
What a
yeah,
fantastic answer.
lots of blast beats.
Lots of blast beats. Well, all the time in the world for more blast beats. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So focusing now a little bit more on Dark Divinity because it's a full band. Can you tell us what the writing process is, please?
What are you saying about? What are you implying about Into Orbit and Glassblower? They're not full. Are they not full bands?
Well, Into Orbit's only two people. Glassbow.
Yeah. It's full. We're not taking applications for anyone new. It's full. It's full. There's only two positions in that band. They're both full.
Sure. Okay. Fair call. Glassblower. Are you still only three guys in Glassblower? Or have you got
What do
four
you mean
now?
only three? How many Blink 182 always got by with three members.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
As Dark Divinity has the most members, and so there's all sorts of different influences potentially coming into that. Can you please describe the writing influence for Dark Divinity, or the writing process? I'm sorry, for Dark Divinity.
it's a little bit. It's kind of a remote working situation where we've all got bedroom studios. We come up with our own song ideas and bring them to the band to like chuck stuff over. And um, this band has kind of been one where I've had a pretty, right from the beginning, I've had a pretty clear uh, limit to the sound. Like, there is a certain, we try and bring in variety, but there are certain things where we want to stay in some confines stylistically. So a lot of the start of that band was me writing everything and kind of like really trying to solidify a style in place, so that people could come in and be like, okay, yeah, this is like a blueprint for what the band's going to kind of sound like, because we're all into all sorts of different music, but you can't necessarily do all sorts of different music in one band. Um, yeah, a lot of it I've written. I've probably written like half of the music myself, and then the other guys bring in ideas, and we kind of swap files over online. If it's a song that I've written most of, then I'll just uh, send an 80% complete song with lyrics and guitars and all that as a demo version, and mention putting a solo here and maybe some gaps in the lyrics or something for Jesse to fill in or something like that. But then there's tracks that we're a bit more collaborative on. Paul will bring in an idea, and um, I tend to kind of chop stuff around. The other guys don't so often come with complete song ideas. Um, but yeah, generally, I kind of get in and help with arrangement and stuff like that. And yeah, one of the most recent songs we've been working on started out as an idea where there were maybe like three or four riffs that were sounding like a decent-ish song, no drums on it or anything, but I chuck drums on, and then you can kind of like you can really feel like the momentum of the song once drums start coming on, and it kind of becomes apparent that like, oh, probably take that verse out and maybe do this bit twice, and maybe we need a different, needs to slightly go somewhere else at this point, otherwise, it becomes a bit monotonous from that point or whatever. So that was kind of my approach with the recent song that they kind of brought to the table, was to insert a couple of new parts on guitar and chop and change some stuff that was already there, and even sometimes just chopping a couple of notes off to slightly alter how how a riff kind of wraps around a bar or whatever. Um, yeah, I do a lot of songwriting and arranging in the recording software. For me, that's really the main place where my creativity happens, to be honest. I can sit down and kind of work stuff out, but it always goes straight into Logic Pro, and so I can start arranging shit and seeing what's like, what if I chop half of this drum beat and bring that one in and put it there and overlay this guitar in here, and delete that note, or pitch shift it up to be something that just being able to quickly try stuff out and be like, oh, I wonder what that would sound like that instead. And instead of having to go to your instrument and try and figure it out or get all in the room and play it back, it's just like, oh, hear this version, a couple of edits, hear this version, hear it back. I think I like that one better. So that's what I spend majority of my time doing. When it comes to creating and input, having creative input into the songs.
Sure, sure. That's a very in-depth answer. Thank you very much. Moving on. Obviously, you've been playing drums for a little while now, so I feel like you've probably got everything relatively on lock. But is there a specific technique that you are practicing or working on at the moment?
So honestly, I just don't fucking practice. I've not practiced, or tried to learn anything new on drums for fucking years. I've not like, very early on when I was starting drums, I got a couple of lessons with Peter Elliott from
Oh,
Chicane.
fuck
He
yeah. And
taught me a few things, a few feel things, a few kind of like habits, and showed me some rudiments I should practice and stuff like that. And there was a time where I was doing that kind of thing and practicing rudiments and trying to like learn fills from different bands and like different techniques and plans and shit. But like, I've not, I'm so loose on theory and even just traditional kind of education on drums. I don't know shit. It's yeah, and I had not been practicing anything. The last challenge on drums was just joining Glassblower, having to learn all of Mark's parts, the previous drummer from Glassblower, having to learn all
yes.
his parts and learn how to play that style. But that was like 3 years ago that I joined that band. So now,
Holy fuck.
yeah. So now
Wow.
that
Oh my God.
now I've kind of like by this point I've like really adopted that way of playing and kind of I guess yeah that's the last thing that I actually made an effort in was just yeah trying to play grindcore but at the same time it really did come very naturally to me because the more I play that style the more I'm like yes this is how fucking spazzy I always wanted to go you know this is I wanted a chance to be able to go ape shit and just like you know change beat at the turn of you know just constant throw the fucking beat around and confuse people play way too fast.
Sure, sure. Well, now, Ian, we move on to a game that I call First, Last, Best, and Worst. This is where you tell us about the first show that you ever played, what your last gig was, what you think the best show that you've ever played is. Now, that's open to interpretation, and also the worst show that you've ever played. That too is open to interpretation, but we'll get to those in just a minute. Starting off, please, Ian, what's the first show that you ever played?
I don't know. It would have been with belligerence. Yeah, I guess it was the belligerence show. But I don't remember who played it or what. Probably Slave Cadaver and I don't know a bunch of bands that were around then. I don't remember anything specific about it.
Sweet as. Moving on, then what was the last gig that you played?
Glassblower at opening for Utilize the Remains at Valhalla, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was really bad. I think we played really bad.
No one
Was
will
it
be
that
able to tell the
one?
difference.
Nah, nah, they know, they know. Um, what did we do? Yeah, I fucked up lots of different parts. I think I was quite drunk when we got on. I think I just
Oh
drank a bit too
no.
much.
Oh
Well, I mean,
no.
no, I'm always at least like 6 beers deep. I'm playing a show unless we're on first or something. But yeah, we fucked up a few songs and I don't know. The drum kit was I'm like the worst at like taking fucking forever to set up my drum kit. Like everyone kind of jokes about it in all the bands that I'm in. Like I just can't. Yeah, it takes me a long time to get the house kit right at Valhalla because those tom arms are just really
Um,
annoying and it's all the like I don't know lock joints or whatever are all fucked and everything's swinging around and nothing's kind of so I was kind of I think I was quite pissed off and a bit pissed when we got on and I think I had to reduce down to one rack tom because I usually like to play with two rack toms but I just couldn't get the two
uh,
where I wanted them. I was like all right and I don't usually practice with only one rack tom so I was yeah in a bit of a compromised position. I think
mm.
at a certain point I think I just thought that a song ended like when it was just like a pause and then I was meant to come in with the drum and fill and then we do the next bit and I don't know what the fuck was going on. And I was just like got to the end of that bit and like oh yeah that's the end of the song and then everybody stands around and was like what the fuck are you doing? Oh yeah that's right. Uh,
Oh gosh. Okay. Sweet as.
I really don't know how the show came across, but internally we were all like, "Fuck, that sucked." I think everyone was polite and like, "Shit," but I don't know. It was probably pretty bad. I think Craig said it was our worst show yet.
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's he can be a bit of a catastrophizer. So
Sure. Sure. Well, moving on there, Ian. What do you think is the best show that you've ever played? Now, this can be the best bands that you played with. It can be the best that you think you personally played, or your band played. It can be the best environment in terms of turnout and people, all that kind of business. It's really open to interpretation. Please.
yeah, I'm going to say two. I don't care what your rules are about your questions. I'm going to say two. At Dark Divinity opening for At the Gates for their New Zealand tour, and was it 2019? Yeah, it was 2019. I don't particularly remember the show, like what the show was like in terms of us playing. I think we did right, but it was just a very big moment for me in terms of like sharing the stage with the people that inspired you to do what you're doing, and they they directly inspired the existence of Dark Divinity specifically. So to support them as Dark Divinity, it was very much a moment that that was pretty significant for me. And then I'm gonna say number two, um, you said environment, and I like one of the coolest experiences of playing music and watching music and being in an event in Wellington was Cuba Duper. What year was it? 2021, where when Valhalla had that huge outdoor stage,
Yep.
like the massive one, and it just transformed that shitty parking lot that where everyone's pissing on the walls and smoking weed out back, and it's like, it's like a shitty alleyway that was transformed into just this incredible stadium kind of feel environment, or just I don't know, there was something about that the atmosphere of that night. And I remember watching Planet of the Dead and just thinking this is just fucking perfect. The outdoors and the big lights and the big stage, and yeah, just something about that atmosphere that night was just really fucking cool.
Awesome. Well, moving on to the last one is the worst show, the
I
worst
just told,
moment.
told you, I just told you that 2 answers ago,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a
I had
couple
a
of weeks
feeling.
ago.
I had a
No,
feeling.
no,
Okay.
that wasn't that was nowhere near the worst. There have been some horrific ones. The worst one, yeah, the worst show I've ever played was with Into Orbit. It would have been 2015, I think. So back when I was kind of a bit more optimistic about the viability of you know playing niche music as a New Zealander and touring the country and playing small towns. I thought that booking Live In was a good idea. So Into Orbit had a show in Live In. We actually had two shows booked at the same place. What was it called? It was like a club. It was like a BYO type underground type thing. I don't, nothing official. It was just like a basically a private event. What was it called? Something Bureau. It had a weird name, but it was just this kind of biker pad type garage type environment just out the back of like some industrial sheds kind of thing. And we were meant to play an afternoon show because for some reason we thought that would be a good idea. Or I think the owner suggested it. We're supposed to do an afternoon show and an evening show, but it was just us and the owner, and like a couple of like really drunk dudes that were just obviously locals hanging out. And there were there was kind of this element of like intimidation where one of the dudes was like, eyeballing us and like being a real dick to us, taking the piss and stuff, and like, asking about the gear and like trying to, just it just seemed like he was intentionally trying to, I don't know, cause trouble, or just, I don't know, intimidate or be weird or whatever. Um, and no, we were sitting around at this place for ages, like drinking a few beers, trying not to get too drunk too early in the afternoon, but like really needing alcohol because it was such a weird fucking situation. But like no one had turned up for the afternoon show, so I was like, okay, guess no afternoon show, right? That's fine. And then comes around to the evening time, and still no one shows up apart from the owner, like I think maybe a someone who helps with equipment or something like that, and these two really drunk dudes. So like those four and us, and then we get up on stage to play our show to like nobody at all. And then one of the real drunk guy who was like being weird around us gets up and grabs a mic, and then he's like singing,
Oh
not
no.
not that it fucking matters because no one's there to see it, but we're just trying to finally get our show over with. And now we've got this dude fucking yelling into the microphone while we're playing our instrumental post-rock song. Yeah, so we had this dude up on stage trying to sing over our instrumental music, and then at some point during that, Paul breaks a string, and we're like, we probably could have fucking ended the show there, but for whatever reason, go into problem-solving mode and borrow someone else's guitar to finish the set and get someone to turn off the PA so that this dude stops singing over our music. And yeah, we get through the set just like, let's get this fucking over with kind of thing. And yeah, it was just a very disheartening kind of it's just like what is you really question your life decisions at that point.
Sure, sure. Lessons learned. I'm sure. Maybe not book Levin next
Yeah,
time.
any small town is pretty hard unless you've got some kind of I'm always surprised with some of the events that happen in Napier. Like Napier Death Fest always seems to pull it off, but that's another any of these kind of medium-sized kind of cities or whatever, it's really hard to pull a crowd based on one headlining tour act.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely.
But yeah,
Oh,
especially Livin. I mean, there's no fucking hope in Livin. I don't know why we I don't know why we ever thought that was a good idea.
wow, fuck it. Give it a go. Give it a go, right? Sometimes lessons
No,
need to be
I
learned.
I
No.
reckon don't. I think I'd say don't give Livin a go. If I can pass on any advice from us that could help anyone, it's just yeah, don't give it a go.
Sure. Sound advice. All right, we are very nearly at the end of the show there, Ian. But just for anybody, I'm fairly confident everybody is already going to know, but just in case they don't, if people want to find Glassblower, Into Orbit, or Dark Divinity on any of the socials or anything like that, where would they go?
Yeah, go and fucking Google it, mate. Just Google it. You can Google any of those things. It's easy.
Sweet as short and succinct. Thank you very much. Right. So, for the very last part of our show, Ian, this is where you get to make any plugs for any things that you've got coming up band wise, and make any shout outs to any people you want to make shout outs to. Ian, sir, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to sleep, just going to bed, having a good rest, and yeah, being all refreshed for the coming week.
Sweet as nothing you want to plug?
I just did. Like, that's sick. Everyone should do it. Do it tonight.
Nice. Sweet as. Well, Ian, this has been an education. Thank you so much for being on my show, man. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, hey, thanks so much for having me. And yeah, congrats on keeping it going for 30 episodes, you say, or
30. This will be the
the 3 hours.
30th episode, which
Well
is
done.
crazy. Well, thank you so much. It's
Yeah, I think you're doing something really cool here.
oh, well, I appreciate that very much. I really do. It's about giving us drummers a bit of the limelight, as I've said, almost 30 times now. We're buried up the back behind the smoke and the lights.
Yeah,
So
bring them out.
bring him out. That's right. A band is only as good as its drummer. And more people need to know that.
Hmm.
Sweet as. So, thank you so much to Ian for being here. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Drop Clutch episode 30 with me, Ricky V. We'll see you next time.